let's get into number 4, and that's where the little things matter. Now, I'm sure you picked up bits and pieces of this in some of our other examples, but every successful piece of marketing focuses on a lot of the little things because the brain is processing a lot of those little things at a subconscious level to create meaning, to derive motivation, to decide if it wants to pay attention to it at all, far more than perhaps you gave credit to those things. So let's focus on some of these a little bit, Dave.
Yeah, so we talked about how it's so automatic that we try to understand what's happening in the world. And we know that this is a framework that has been already talked about in the world of marketing in the distinction between the system 1 and system 2, which helps us appreciate the fact, the notion of system 1 helps us appreciate the fact that the majority of information and the way that we engage in the world is automatic. It's as if we're on autopilot and we're not thinking too much about what we're doing. And so very intuitive and instinctive and difficult to articulate is basically how we extract information from the world. And I talked about it here in terms of implicit and explicit. All of that implicit information is that kind of complicated information that conveys things that we don't necessarily, and we aren't able to necessarily verbally talk about.
And it's funny because we talk about thinking, and when we talk about thinking, we really mean that intentional thinking where you're cognitively engaged, but the brain is processing lots of stuff precognitively, and it gives a lot more weight to the things that it sees non-verbally than it does the verbal descriptions. Like in this example, somebody says yes, but they're shaking their head no. What are you going to think they really mean? Well, chances are, if you're like most people, you override what they said and you focus on that body language of what's coming across. So this is fundamentally true in an obvious example like this, but it's true in lots of smaller, more subtle ways.
Yeah, I really like this example from Lean Cuisine where they are offering 20% more food. And this goes against the whole, you have two conflicting pieces of information here. The notion of lean invokes ideas of being skinny, maybe working out, eating healthy, and it certainly doesn't invoke ideas of eating more food. So when you encounter that 20% more, it invokes ideas of, gaining weight, maybe eating irresponsibly. These two things conflict.
Yeah, and they could have gone about this in lots of other ways, but they're leaning into that natural system where our brain goes, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. I'm not going to pay attention to one of the things that you're saying here. And unfortunately for Lean Cuisine, they're probably not paying attention to the lean portion of their message. We saw this in another famous ad from a couple of years ago. Burger King briefly ran this ad on one outdoor board. Now, it was done mostly so that the creative folks could submit it for the national and international awards, and they did. And they actually did reasonably well. However, Burger King was smart enough not to run this ad more widespread. Now, you've likely seen it if you're watching this webinar, because they got to be somewhat famous within the industry. But what's going on here is when the brain sees this, what does it process? Ugh, oh my God, that's disgusting. And because of our emotional memory, that's what we remember. Like, oh, disgusting, Burger King. It sees this and remembers disgust, and then it stores disgust associated with Burger King. As a result, it didn't sell many hamburgers. That may have won some marketing awards, but as we have seen, marketing awards have a really low relationship with business outcomes. I think it's a tremendous example of that implicit processing that's going on that overrides whatever the creatives hoped was going to occur.
This video is from our webinar series, and you can check out intermarkgroup.com/webinar to watch the full series. We're a full-service advertising agency that embeds a layer of behavioral science in our creative. And you can check out the information below to learn more about us and to contact us to help you solve your marketing challenges.